Support American-made tariff-free clothing with American Giant with American Giant. They aren't affected by tariffs because their clothing products never left the U.S. Get 20% off your first order when you use promo code STAPLE20 at american-giant.com.
And welcome to the Worldview 2 Washington Report for this evening, Monday night, May 19th, 2025. Joining me now is our D.C. correspondent and colleague, Jim Paff of the Conservative Caucus.org. Jim, hope you had a great weekend.
Surely did.
Good.
Spent some time at Trump Doral, actually, at a pastor conference down there. Had a fun time.
Good. What'd you learn?
You know, I really believe that there's going to be some good effort on the Trump administration's part to try to celebrate our 250th anniversary since the declaration and really give acknowledgement to the Judeo-Christian foundations of this republic. And they are strong and very real. And I think we need to be talking about this regularly. This is a big part of it. And what a contrast. If Kamala Harris or Joe Biden had become president, they'd be beating down those ideas. They'd be turning them back. And maybe even, as one friend was telling me today, I don't know if this is true, but it's possible that you never know. They might have even said, listen, this Constitution's messed up. We need to change it. I mean, that's kind of the idea that Democrats have. Everything you watch them do shows that they really don't believe in the American Republic and the American experiment, which is an experiment in free government. They constantly put down the Constitution. The 1619 Project was a big part of that. And I'm just glad Donald Trump got elected president, because as we celebrate this momentous anniversary, we need someone that actually believes in the American ideal. So that spirit is there at that event over the weekend. And I think it's good for all of us that Donald Trump really does want to really celebrate what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we're going to be trying to cover it big time in 215, doing our own specials as well. So, yeah. All right, big news. Joe Biden seems to have terminal cancer. But didn't he slip up a couple years ago and tell us that? Did you see that? He
surely did.
He did,
I remember that very well.
You have that clip, Logan? I did. Yeah. He slipped up and said people like him and others who have cancer, they've known for a long time. This idea that they just found out and it's already gone to his bones, baloney. He told us a few years ago he had cancer.
Listen, I do pray for the family. I mean, it's whatever the circumstance, it's hard for a family to deal with. But let's be very real here. There's no backing down at all from the analyzing the horrible things that were taking place. I mean, I don't believe Joe Biden was president. I think we all, or many of us on this, MAGA people and actually a lot of right-thinking Americans didn't believe Joe Biden was running things. Well, it's more clear now that he really wasn't. I mean, he was just totally out of it. This is a travesty. I think there's some criminal behavior involved with it. And there are Democrats out there right now saying, hey, we need to back off the investigations now that he's announced that he's got cancer. That's bogus.
Sorry.
You cannot let these things go.
No, we cannot. You're absolutely right. Watch this clip.
And because it was a 4-lane highway that was accessible, my mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer. And why can't, for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
There you go. He told us.
You know, in the midst of a specious environmentalist argument, I mean, there are a lot of cancerous substances out there, but I'm just sick and tired of the crass political nature of who Democrats are. But yeah, he slipped up And I think we have to accept the fact that he knew what was going on then. And the plan was, at that time, he was still running for president, was to get him elected and then let Kamala Harris walk right in whenever he decided he needed to leave the scene. It's crazy, the twists and turns of American politics that have been happening since Barack Obama, by the way, came on the scene. It was kind of bad beforehand. It's always bad. But it's really gotten worse since Obama weaponized American government, began that weaponization process against Americans.
Let's hear what Donald Trump had to say, I think maybe today. Here we go.
I think it's very sad, actually. I'm surprised that it wasn't, the public wasn't notified a long time ago, because to get to stage 9, that's a long time. I just had my physical. You saw that. You saw the results of that particular test. I think that test is standard to pretty much anybody getting a physical, good physical. We had the doctors at the White House and over at Walter Reed, which is a fantastic hospital. I do it. I did a very complete physical, including cognitive tests. I'm proud to announce I aced it. Got them all. I got them all right.
I didn't realize there was a stage 9 cancer. Did you?
No, and I'm not precisely certain about that. Stage 4 is always, at least was my understanding. I'm no doctor, obviously, but that's what I thought was top-level cancer. I think this one gets rated in a different way, maybe, or something. Who knows? But, I mean, it's advanced. It's gotten into the bones. They say it's potentially treatable, and that may be true, but you might have heard the Dilbert creator, Scott Adams, announce that he has the same kind of cancer, and he's saying he doesn't expect to be alive past the summer. So I don't know what to make of it all, but what I do know is this, that we have politicians and media people and bureaucrats who are consistent liars. As I say, 6,000 years of recorded human history proves the radical corruption of mankind. We're watching it on display, and it's absurd. We've got to extract this somehow from our political culture.
So I don't know how long he's got, but man, when he does pass, watch how the media is going to rewrite it. We should make that a meme. What do you call it? A GIF? Make that a GIF, what he just did, Logan.
Well, they're going to call for him to be on display in the rotunda. And I mean, in a sense, that can be appropriate when presidents die. That's a big deal. But still, the fawning that's going to be there, and yet these people, these Democrats, were hiding this man's incapability for years. It is absolutely absurd, the way that they react. I mean, there's no balance in it. They won't call for the same thing whenever Donald Trump dies. I can guarantee you that. It's just crazy.
Do you think there'll be lines going out the Capitol door to walk past his casket?
If there are still bureaucrats in this town, and many of them are selling their homes and starting to leave already, that yes, there's going to be a long line. And by the way, it'll be an organized line too. George Soros or somebody's going to pay for people to come from all over the place to make the line really long, because they want the Joe Biden type of government. Listen, I am truly sad for his family and for his condition, but the man is a confirmed liar for his entire political career. The man hardly says a truth out of his mouth, and there's no honor or respect for that. I don't respect him any more than John McCain, who deserves no respect. And so, I hate to say that, but the reality is we need to understand who these people are, and we need to point it out. It is a travesty what our country has gone through under Joe Biden's lack of care.
Well, just think about the debacle Afghan withdrawal and the number of people that died. Among many things.
Yeah, think about the tens of millions of people they just let through the border, and every attempt to stop what he was doing through legal means, which Republicans never do enough of. That was hardly effective. There was one case that was a little bit effective for a short period of time, but they don't want to stop that. And now that Donald Trump's trying to reverse the process and clean it up, I'm sure we'll talk about it. We had one good opinion from the Supreme Court today, but most of it has been blocking everything that Donald Trump's trying to do. Donald Trump's in the right. Joe Biden was clearly in the wrong, even to the point of lying about border agents and saying they were whipping people. You remember that incident?
Yes. Oh, yes.
I mean, they have so absurdly turned truth on its head, and it's time to reassert it. Donald Trump's got, the courage to do it. We just need to keep moving forward.
Let's go to the Supreme Court. It's being hailed as a victory for President Trump, right?
Yeah, so the Supreme Court said that he could reverse the temporary protection status of 350,000 Venezuelans who came in this country. Now, let's keep in mind, someone's always going to argue, yeah, but what about that one American that gets wrongly, whatever? Okay, and that's bad if that happens. But in reality, Donald Trump was correct in the 4 years prior to his running for president successfully last year, that Venezuela was sending up criminals into our country. I don't know how many of those 350,000 fall in that category, but it's a large number of them. And so it's crazy that we have allowed this to happen. And I'm thankful that the Supreme Court has dealt with this in this way. And it tells me the possibility that the Supreme Court will later come out and say that these district judges can't make these broad orders. And the reason I say that is this, because you remember in the earlier decision from a few days ago that they said that he couldn't use the Alien Enemies Act in such a precipitous manner. But they did say in that opinion that he could use other means to do that. So they weren't shutting everything down. The fact that they came out with this one so quickly tells me that they are thinking through these things, and we might get a good decision when it comes to these district court judges and what they're doing. So there's a little bit of hope there with me. I mean, I'm still watching it, and I don't know precisely how it'll play out. But this was an encouraging decision today.
Here's Donald Trump again from the Oval Office today.
You mentioned that you believe Putin wants peace, but he just attacked Ukraine yesterday. So what makes you think that he wants peace?
Well, he's in a war. Nobody said don't. They're fighting. They're attacking each other, and people are dying all the time. He's in a war. He's fighting a war. Nobody said he was going to stop. I think, is it terrible? Yeah, it's terrible. I think it's terrible.
You mentioned.
I don't know. He had a 2-hour phone call today with Putin, didn't he?
Yeah. And we don't know all the results of it. Apparently, I think there was something like 1,000 prisoner of war exchange. That doesn't, I mean, that's important as far as it goes, but it's far from a resolution here. Vladimir Putin's attempting to try to play this up for himself right now. And the word is that he has some negativity at home over this war, but he's got such a stranglehold on the country that, any political efforts to thwart him are easily shoved down. Let's not forget, Vladimir Putin's a bad man. I mean, he really is an evil man in even starting this war. But that said, this war's got to stop. Zelensky has made horrible mistakes and could have gotten this resolved in 2023. I think it was that he had that he was going to have a meeting and there was a deal on the table. It's apparently still on the table. I hope that comes around. But Vladimir Putin's trying to save face. I am hopeful, though, that Donald Trump can still help negotiate some sort of a resolution here. I think that that's in the offing. We have to give it time, more time than Donald Trump wanted or any of us wants. But people are dying. It's got to stop.
Let's talk about your friend Chip Roy. He stayed in D.C. this weekend, along with others, to try to get some work done. What was the end result?
Well, so they voted it out of committee Sunday night. Chip Roy and the others who voted against it on Friday voted present, which allowed a majority to pass it out of the Budget Committee. It moves over to the Rules Committee, where Chip also sits, by the way. So he'll have a say on this. What he and people who are reticent or opposing this bill have been talking about is something that's very, very serious. The CBO score on the bill as it stood going into committee projected $50 trillion of new debt over the total debt, at the end of the 10-year window that they do their projections. Something along those lines is definitely in the offing. What apparently happened were some advancements on dealing with a work requirement in Medicaid. There still are a lot of reforms that are not being taken, that are not happening there. A lot of the Green New Deal focused policies are still being funded in the overall budget. Listen, at the end of the day, when this passes, and I think it ultimately is going to pass, you're going to have permanent tax cuts in all the tax bill. That's one of the things that came out of Jason Smith's Ways and Means Committee. So the Trump tax cuts will become permanent if this passes. All the other tax cuts, like tax on tips, tax on no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, that'll become permanent as well. That's really good coming out of this bill, and it's one of the major things that Donald Trump wanted to accomplish. The problem in my mind, and certainly in Chip's mind and others, is that we have debt coming out of our ears for time immemorial, it seems. You know, Jason Friedberg of the All In podcast made a very cogent argument about how serious this situation is. We are projected to be paying $2 trillion a year just in interest payments on the debt as this keeps going. That's coming down the pike. We're already in the $1 trillion a year range, more than the defense budget right now. We are not doing anything to bend the curve on this, and every cut that's proposed comes in the out years. This is one of the arguments Chip's been making, and he's absolutely right about it. This is a real problem, and we're not serious about it after a massive election win in November, that if they would just implement the Doge cuts, if they would just, as Friedberg was arguing, go, as I've been arguing over and over again, go back to 2019 levels. Even if you add inflation on the 2019 levels, you have drastically reduced the deficit on an annual basis, and there's no need for any extra funding that's come in new programs since 2019, mostly related to COVID. We could reverse all of that with line items. We could reverse the bills that implemented those things, the 2020 bill, as well as the inflation, so-called Inflation Reduction Act of Joe Biden. You could just reverse those policies immediately, and you've gone a long way to fixing this problem. We've gone from almost $4.5 trillion in annual spending in 2019 to $7 trillion now. The current projection, or the last one I saw, was $7.03 trillion. There's no need for that massive, nearly 50%, well, about 56% increase in spending over this time period when inflation, though it's been horrible, is nowhere near that. They got to get serious about this, and the American people would reward them for it in the polls in 2026. They just have to have the courage. Apparently that's not there.
Yeah, this graphic Chip Roy put out on X, $400 billion in savings if repealed. That's the project already in service and connected to the grid. The current reconciliation bill does not repeal these subsidies. Wow. $607 billion in savings if repealed. I mean, these different projects he's talking about.
Yeah.
And it's green energy. But the problem is you got a lot of Republicans living in districts that get all this pork scam money. We already know that solar energy is fine. If you want to put on your house, buy a solar generator. I have a solar generator. But you can't run the whole stinking grid with it. You can't. And if you don't, and it actually starts to conflict with the fossil fuel system of our grid and coal and nuclear. It isn't feasible for running the grid.
It's not even feasible for individual projects. I mean, consider the fact that so much of these green programs are subsidies to people to adopt green policies. Well, why would you afford a subsidy if it's already cost efficient? Listen, you can put solar grids on your home, but you're going to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to make that happen, and you might save $1,000 a year, maybe $1,500 a year if you can have it generate all your energy and sell it back on the grid. But you got to buy expensive batteries. And by the way, God bless Elon Musk. What he's doing is phenomenal. Get a Tesla Powerwall if you can afford it. Put the solar panels on your home. That would be a very effective thing for you. But you can't get the benefit back from the expense. It only helps your present cash flow. It takes forever to pay these things off, and that's why they've been doing subsidies for that.
And the reason
the
only reason to do that, in my opinion, isn't to try to save money. I think other ways to save money would be if the grid goes down, right?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
But think you're doing it because you're going to save a bunch of money. Dumb reason. Do it because, hey, our grid's vulnerable, cyber attacks, EMP. Yeah. Then now it makes sense. But not to run the whole grid, just your house.
Well, no, that's right. But by the way, if you're in a populated area and you have this and an EMP goes off that shuts down the power, it's also going to shut down your equipment on your home. Like, it's not a perfect solution. And it is very difficult to manage and monitor. You know, my former boss, Thomas Massey, he's an engineer. And he set up his system. He's entirely off the grid, and he's done an amazing work there, but he was capable of doing it. Not a lot of people are capable of doing that. So more power to you, if you will, because it is a good thing. It's better than having a loud power generator if a thunderstorm comes through. But so there are some benefits, but the cost-benefit ratio just is not there right now. And these programs that have been in place for years have not changed the cost curve on that yet so that people can enter into it. It's time to stop that. There's enough investment into it. People can't afford it. It'll eventually become very useful. It's just not there now, and we have to stop paying for it.
100%. Let the free market do it. There's a demand for it. People pay for it. If not, they won't. Budget resolution point number 2. You see this chart today by Chip Roy?
I missed that one. I'm looking at it.
A conservative economist friend put together a chart most favorable to the BBB on deficits. Assuming dynamic scoring, budget committee, 2.6% economic growth over 10, and known scores to date, both good, work accomplished, and not good to backloaded. What do you make of that?
Well, listen, the numbers don't work unless you make big cuts, period. I will say this. I have a problem with some of these scores. The dynamic score is helpful. But in reality, the tax portion of this is not going to cost $4 trillion because all you're doing is extending the current tax structure with a few very minor in terms of dollars additions. So it affects a lot of people, and I support it because I think it's useful and helpful for all those people. But the dynamic scoring on this will actually be positive with the tax cuts there. It's one of the arguments that Donald Trump's going to be able to successfully make. But the cost curve is not changing. We are so far up in our spending, it's outrageous. If we would just cut it back, we still have revenue growth. I can't pull it up very quickly. I probably should have put it together beforehand. But the revenue chart, when you look at it from the 2018, when the Trump tax cuts came into effect until now, our revenue has skyrocketed. We might be in surpluses right now if we had kept spending in check during that entire time. But we didn't, and we're paying the price for it, and we've got to reverse course.
Yep. How long do you, well, let me ask you this. Patrick Wood and I, in my 2010 radio show, I showed the screen to prove it. I was talking about taking the land in America and North Canada, a North American Union. They could create I'm not saying I was for North American Union, but I said that I would not be shocked if they make a North American Union and then they take the land in America, Mexico and Canada, and the minerals and everything's in it, and then use that to back a common currency. That was 2010. I have the radio show to prove it. Now, Patrick Wood on my show the other night saying the same thing. He says, I think President Trump is going to try to take a lot of this land, minerals, other things, and try to get us into the, $600, $500 trillion range of hard assets and use that to offset, who cares about $37 trillion in debt when we have this much in hard assets backing our currency? What say you?
Well, we need to get away from the fiat currency Federal Reserve system anyway.
Yes.
That's the main reason we can, in peacetime, grow our spending more than we ever have in wartime. We used to be just a little bit below World War II in our increase in spending. But keep in mind, we went to, I think it was 120 to 150% debt to GDP ratio at the end of World War II. And we got down to the 30 to 50% range through the 1950s through major growth. Growth is good for that. But the problem is we had this massive increase in spending in this century because of the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve funds all of it. Nobel Prize laureate Milton Friedman, Uncle Milty, as I like to call him, made it very clear that there is no such thing actually as an unbalanced budget. The way they balance it is by printing money and future payments against debt that you're responsible for, and inflation because they print money to subsidize all of this. So this is why the government doesn't, in part, why the government doesn't seem to worry. The politicians can keep doing their pet projects, and they don't have to worry about anything. The Federal Reserve has their back. So going to a hard asset currency would be one of the best things we could do right now. Economist Peter St. Onge had a great video on this that he 2 or 3 months ago actually about 6 months ago that he put out. You could totally make this happen. And so I don't know if the precise plan that Donald Trump is doing is the best one, but it's one idea. We can go to a gold standard. I mean, we could do that now. There's a way to transition into that, and we would be much better off for it, and it would restrain government. Government needs restraints because, the human problem, if I may say, is such that people will seek their own benefit to gain power, influence, money, whatever, and at the expense of others. It's greed, basically. And every government operates on greed. That's why you want to restrain it so much. So a hard currency would be much better for the American economy in the long run and for our future as a country.
100%. Here is President Trump and Melania today. Beautiful day in the nation's capital, obviously, from that picture. Her cause this term has so far been the Take It Down Act, which has to do with, I think, children, minors, who have things put up online about them. In a lot of cases, things that aren't true, using AI and other things to make the person appear to be in a compromised position, exploited. But it's happening to children. And this was Melania Trump's push, and the president signed it today. What do you know about it, beyond what I just said?
Well, principally, as a matter of principle, this is an appropriate thing to do. It is essentially an assault on someone's character, however stupid that they might have been that led to this. But as you say, AI is being used to deal with these things too. When you are slandering someone else or you are putting them at a disadvantage that they have no means to fix, there needs to be a system through which you can do it. I'm against censorship of any sort, but this is not censorship. This and some of the aspects of the bill possibly might go too far, and we may need to fix some of those things. But as a matter of principle, when someone is slandering or abusing someone publicly, that should never be allowed. And you should have civil and criminal penalties for what people do based upon the severity of it. Some people do make stupid mistakes. So let's just be honest about it. You need to act properly, and your own behavior needs to be put in check. Nonetheless, you should not be able to exploit people in any way.
So in other words, if a individual is filmed in a, without clothes on,
compromising position,
there you go, then their ex-husband or boyfriend can't put that out there to use it to embarrass them and to attack them, that kind of thing. So I think it goes beyond just children.
Yeah.
criminalizes distribution of explicit images without consent. So there you go. Includes AI-generated forgeries. Proposes up to 3 years in prison for offenders. Establishes liability for platforms that fail to remove the content. Relies on FTC and local and on social media companies to enforce the law. There you go. Well, it has been an issue, but the children are the ones that concern me the most. Children who have someone who may themselves be a child take AI and use it to put something up there about them that's not even true, didn't happen, it's AI. And some kids, unfortunately, take their own life over this kind of thing. Closing comment?
Well, listen, it is tragic when that happens. I think there is a consequence for putting people in a compromising position in these, blowtorch public platforms. There has to be a consequence to that. This seems reasonable. It's going to be adjudicated in court, I can guarantee you that. But the concept is a valid one because you shouldn't be able to take advantage of people.
TheConservativeCaucus.org. Thank you, Jim. And we're brought to you by you through our foundation, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Thanks for watching. Take care.